Hello, today we're going to talk about grant and scholarship writing for students. The first thing that we're going to talk about is how to implement effective process and practices that lead to successful and hopefully wonderful funding for grant and scholarship writing for students. We're also going to talk about how do you find the funding? How do you conduct internet research and or just regular research to identify who's giving money right now for grant and scholarships for students? We're also going to talk about writing the essential components. What are those specific parts of a grant and scholarship that you need to pay attention to and that they need to be in every proposal that you write? We're also going to talk about, so once you receive the funding, how you ensure to follow through and follow up with the funder and the grantor. Particularly if you're going back to them for additional funding, what does that look like? How should you do that? So let's jump right into it and talk about finding funding. 3 really good resources for you. The first thing that I would recommend is setting up a Google alert. This is a free alert through Google, so if you're not sure and you don't have a Google alert or multiple Google alerts already set up, Google Alerts. And with that, you are going to be able to enter in keyword searches. So an example for grant and scholarship might be grants for college students, scholarships for college students. So anything that hits the internet that has those keywords are going to be delivered directly into your inbox, and you can choose the frequency in which that will be delivered to you. Another great resource is a free resource also. Many public libraries in Western North Carolina have this software, Foundation Directory, so you can go in there. It's free for students and nonprofit organizations. You can go in there and search via keyword search also to find those specific foundations and or funders who are giving grants and scholarships to college students. Another great resource is talk to your parents. For you younger college students who are out there, many of your parents work probably for large corporations and or companies. Large corporations and companies have private foundations, and they love giving money that is going to benefit people who are already employed with them. And a lot of people do not understand that foundations, as a mandate, in order to stay in business, they have to give away a certain percentage of their funding each year. So there are monies out there, particularly with these larger companies and corporations. So definitely talk to your parents about that. So let's jump into the essential components of grants. And what does that look like? What should you include in every proposal? The first thing that you're going to do is make sure that you follow the instructions to the letter. So dotting those I's and crossing those T's is very important. I can't stress enough right now the competitiveness that is out there. I mean, foundation and grantors are getting hundreds, if not thousands, of requests. So you really need to make sure that you stand out and follow the instructions, because right now they're just looking for anything to kind of dwindle the pile, so to speak. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to include a cover letter. So a cover letter is going to be simply a summary, and it's going to invite the reader to continue reading your proposal. Many people do not realize that the cover letter is probably one of the most important components of the actual proposal, and it can make or break the entire proposal. So what you also want to do is, if the grantor or the funder has requested not to have a cover letter, then don't include it. For every other proposal, you are going to include a cover letter. The next step is the executive summary. The executive summary, while it's the second part of the narrative or the entire proposal, it is going to be the last section that you write. The executive summary is just as it's stated, a summary. So you're simply going to summarize what you have already written in the narrative. This section or this component is not the place to introduce any new ideas. You're simply just summarizing all of those key points that you've already made in the narrative. So with the actual narrative, the next step, the narrative has multiple steps inside of it. The first step inside of the narrative is going to be the need statement. So the need statement is going to explain to the funder why you, as opposed to anyone else. Why should they give money to you? Remember, we talked about competitiveness. Competition is fierce out there right now with these funds. So why should they give to you as opposed to all of the hundreds or thousands of people that are applying for the exact same funds? From the needs statement, you're going to then walk them through your goals and objectives. What are your long-term goals and objectives? What do you hope to accomplish via this education? Once you get this education, so what? Make sure that you're able to answer that question. So what? What are your goals and objectives, and what do you plan to do? The next step is your method section. So once you have your goals and objectives, how are you going to get to that point? How are you going to reach and fulfill those goals and objectives? What is going to be your method of obtaining and securing those goals and objectives? The next section in the narrative is going to be the evaluation. So how are you going to evaluate how you get there? Is it going to be just by obtaining your bachelor's degree, or is it going to be that you want a certain grade point average by the time that you graduate? How are you going to get there? How are you going to evaluate your success in obtaining those goals and objectives? The next section in the narrative is sustainability. So we hear this term all the time in today's society, sustainability. Funders and grantors typically do not give 100% funding. So going out there and finding one source to pay for your college education 100% is slim to none, to be honest with you. They simply do not like putting all of their eggs in one basket, because as we know, that's risky business. So what they really want to see is if they give you, let's say, $10,000 towards your undergraduate degree, where are you going to come up with the additional funding? We know that $10,000 is not enough for an undergraduate degree. So this section is where you're going to include a budget and actually walk the funder through how you're going to obtain that. So does this mean that you're going to get additional loans? Are you going to apply for additional grants and scholarships? Or are you going to try to get a scholarship for a sport that you play, such as an athletic scholarship? How are you going to get there? So in this budget, what you want to do is you want to include those funds that you've already applied for, whether you've received them or not, so that way they can see that you are actually trying. The last section of the narrative is going to be personal information. So making sure that they know who you are and how they can reach you if they have any questions. So in conclusion, we've seen that there are many facets and components to grant writing. Hopefully that helps you. You can use that kind of as a checklist for your next proposal that you write. We've also identified some common mistakes. And then I will leave you with, always make sure that you have an extra set of eyes proofing this before you turn it in. And then also making sure that you follow through with the grantors by either a simple thank you and or every year letting them know how you're progressing on your goals and objectives. Thanks for listening.